Good day. I'm going to record a brief commentary about the upcoming essay that's due this weekend. Hopefully you've been working on it. I'm going to go over some other details. I'm also going to talk about the MLA format that you need to follow, just in case you're not familiar with it. Right now on the screen you should see the major essay module open. You'll also see it when you look under Unit 11. You'll see the major essay here. If you click on it, it gives you the detail about the assignment, just as you'll see it, and it's taking me to that one. And so, again, what that does, it actually jumps from there to this module here. And this is the actual assignment that you'll submit your essay, through which you'll submit your essay. So you click on this, which was just on the screen. It tells you some details. The essay must be 1,000+ words. You have to follow MLA format. As it says, shorter responses, those that do not follow MLA format will not be graded. Technically they will. You'll get a 0. I asked you to go with Docs or Doc, Microsoft Word, primarily because there are sometimes glitches that occur. Apple Pages and Turnitin do not get along very well. You can use your PDF or your Google Docs for the submissions. Just be aware that after you submit it, go back in and look at it to make sure the format do not get altered. Sometimes that can happen going from Google Docs, which typically will save as a PDF, into Turnitin. And the format, the different structuring of the paragraphs, the lines, will sometimes get off. But you can submit it. But if it turns up with incorrect MLA formatting, that's what it means that this will not be graded. Also, I do have to mention this, and unfortunately we do, the use of AI-generated writing from sources such as ChatGPT or any of the others, Copilot, Gemini, any other ones you want to use. I think GTP0 is one. That's not allowed. The submission of any essay that is wholly or partially made of AI-generated text, and it will show up, is going to be considering the policy of plagiarism, which means you'll receive a 0 for that particular one. Now, if your essay is submitted early enough and I note the AI content, I'll let you know that you have a chance to clean it up and resubmit it. But again, for the topic, let's just look at this very quickly. You're selecting one of there are 8 topics, so you're going to select only one of these. Do not do as a student did recently, last year in fact. They had, that particular course had 9 topics to use. The student wrote a short paragraph over each of the 9. That's not what you do. We want a full essay over one topic. The topics do concern information contained within chapters 11 through 15. So you need to have a sharp focus. You need to offer specific details. Go through the chapter in which the topic is discussed. Plus, you'll also want to use other information. I'm going to show you where you need to find that information. Do not go into Google search, and never, as it says here, use Wikipedia. Had a student asked yesterday about, well, could we click on the links that Wikipedia cites? Because you'll have something. And I told her no, because what's going to show up is going to be credited to Wikipedia. You do not use Wikipedia for academic writing, ever. So instead, you want to use our library resources. There's some other ones you can look at too, and I'm going to show you some of those also. So again, if you have any question about a source that you're planning on using, share that information with me so I can look at it, make sure that it is, as it says here, appropriate for academic purposes. There's some repeated again about the submissions that do not meet the length requirement. Again, that's 1,000 words in length. And if it does not meet that, it does not follow MLA formatting, you'll receive a 0. And again, there's the detail about the AI. For just a little note for you, when it says hallmarks of good writing, that means correct grammar, correct mechanics, that includes punctuation, sound writing, so you have smooth transitions from point to point, good solid details, and nicely interpreted details, which are carefully explained. I'm also an English teacher, so please be aware of that. You're going to make sure you avoid any errors in punctuation, mechanics, and grammar. You can always go over the length of 1,000 because sometimes you may feel you need to. So when looking at the topics, the first one concerns the Medici family. And so from Lorenzo's death in 1492 to the return to power in the 1500s, I just asked you to discuss what happened to the family members, how they regained their power, and the importance of this family to the early Renaissance and beyond. So you're going to be looking at several details that are there. It's discussed in the textbook somewhat, but only in a very limited manner. You'll want to do some further research about it. There are some excellent books over the de Medici family. There are also some really good articles, and I'll show you some of those here in a moment. So you're going to look at those. And again, this gives you an opportunity for those who might have been interested in what the Medici family meant in Florence and beyond to find out a little bit more about those. The second topic looks at Machiavelli and his work, The Prince. There are some excerpts given in chapter 12. And I ask you to look at those. If you want to look at the full Prince, it is available online at different places. There are links to the actual text. But I ask you to look what's presented in the textbook, and then apply that to government. Is it really useful? As it says here, can a state be successful if it's following those details? And you can give examples of government in the way of being successful or not. He offers a view about what people are like, what humanity is. Is he really being pessimistic, perhaps, about what humanity is like? Is it something else? And so I ask you to develop that one. So basically, in approaching the first topic, choose different members of the family. Talk about the idea about the de Medici family regaining power in Florence and how they did that, and then explain their importance throughout the Renaissance and on into a later time period. Well, if you take each of these parts, these three individual questions, so look at those, and you write 300 or 400 words over each one, which this is easy to do as you look at 3 or 4 different members. Same thing here about regaining the power, the political maneuverings that go on in that one, and then about the family, again, other family members as well, and how important they were. If you write, you can easily do 200, 300, 400 words over each of these points, then you're easily at the point of the limit of the length of the essay is required. Same thing with Machiavelli. As you look at discussing how his advice can be useful or not, and you argue that detail and discuss it, that will take you some time, 400 or 500 words. Same thing looking at his view about humanity. Is it pessimistic? Is it realistic, perhaps? And you get to explain that using the details, again, supportive details of examples. And that, again, 400 or 500 words for each of those sections will give you easily the length of the essay. The next part looks at the Venetian painting style. There's a commentary in the textbook about that. And they're looking at the High Renaissance era for this one. And then what was going on in Rome, the different style there. The painting in Rome, which you'll hopefully remember from the textbook, focuses much more on on liturgical topics, the idea of much more church-related painting and use for display in the churches, the altar pieces. The Venetian painting style has a little difference there, but I want you to look at the style, the subject matter as well, subjects that are offered, how they're presented, the idea of line and color, spacing, and how that's used. Those are all discussed in the textbook. You want to look at specific examples, so if you choose 2 or 3 examples of the Venetian style, 2 or 3 of the Roman style, what really was around the Vatican sponsored, etc., and you discuss each of those in 150 or a short little paragraph over each one. Well, that will give you 500 or plus words over each one, and you have the entire essay length covered in that way. The next one has you look at, moving through the chapters, the focus was on science at one time, scientific study and the importance of it during this era as we start moving into the 1600s, 15 to the 1600s. we'll ask you to look at these individuals and ask you to choose two. Okay, only two of them, not all four. And so, again, that means you're essentially going to look at one for about 500 or 600 words, and then the other for 500 or 600 words. Have an introduction where you set up the consideration for both, and then a conclusion where you wrap it up also, looking at the development of scientific study that these individuals have contributed, and how they were regarded then, how we look at them now. Newton, Kepler, Gilbert, and Harvey each have significant contributions that were made during their lifetime, but they also had some of their skeptics, especially Kepler. So you want to discuss that. So again, won't take you, it's fairly easy to do a couple of pages over each of these. And again, 2 pages would be about 600 words or so. So it's really easy to do that with the sources you can look at, and I'll show you those here in a moment. The fifth one asks you to look at the Baroque world. It's that wonderful series of videos you can watch where it's Janáček, Vladimir Janáček, I just call him Wally, looks at the Baroque and gives you wonderful comments as he takes you to all the places and shows you all of that. And he really is good in his commentary about those. And so you get to look at specific examples. So choose a couple of paintings, some of the architecture, examples of literature, examples of the music. So again, if you just choose 1 or 2 from each of these and discuss those, you'll be able to easily cover what needs to be covered. Now, you don't have to cover all 5 of these bulleted points, but you could. But just talking about space and light and symbolism within the artworks will take you some time, in the sense of amount of details that should be presented. So again, that's something you can look at. Do you have to cover music, art, architecture, and literature? No, you do not. You can, if you want to focus strictly on the art, for instance, you can do that. If you want to focus on the architecture, you can do that. If you're more literature-oriented, you want to discuss the literature, then you can do that. Again, the videos that are listed as supplemental material provide excellent details that you can use. And then the book has some details, and there are also a couple other links that I'll show you in a moment. The 6th one is about Michelangelo, who's a very important individual as he moves through different time frames, really. When you look at the Renaissance, he's at the beginning through it, and then he leads us into the next era, in fact. He has different periods in his life as he works, and so there are basically 3 major periods. For instance, as it says here, toward the end he was working with mannerism. Taking one sculpture from each of his periods, you can look at those and talk about how that work reflects, as it says here, a major emphasis from that period. How does it show future developments in art? Again, looking at just his different works, you're talking about maybe having to write a minimum of 300 or 400 words over each sculpture, which is fairly easy to do when you talk about what the work represents, how it's developed, what it presents. So it's very easy to do that. And so, again, Michelangelo's life usually is put into 3 different periods. His early phase, his middle period, and then toward the end of his life, what he does. So you can look at those. The 7th topic is all about Hamlet. So if you're familiar with the play, then you're in good stead. It asks you to look at Castiglione, who wrote, of course, The Courtier, and then Machiavelli's The Prince, and discuss how the character of Hamlet reflects both of these works, the traits that are depicted that the courtier should have. As Castiglione presents it, and that's explained in your textbook. Same thing with Machiavellian's Prince. It's discussed in your textbook. But you can go outside and look at some other sources about the courtier by Castiglione and about the Prince to get more details if you need to. But then you go to the play, and you're focusing on the character of Hamlet, who is the courtier and the prince. In fact, the subtitle of the play is Prince of Denmark. So again, using details from the play, very specific ones. You're writing about 400 or 500 words as Hamlet is as a courtier, and using specific details from the play for that part, and then 400 or 500 words over how he also represents Machiavellian principles. And again, using details from the play that you can discuss. The last one asks you to think about the Enlightenment. That was in chapter 15, sort of heralded in chapter 14 and moved into 15. And it names some specific figures here. So you can look at Voltaire, Rousseau, and Kant if you want to, but you don't have to. You can also look at and give you some potential views of Enlightenment ideals and Renaissance humanism, how they compare. You can do reason empiricism. Empiricism refers to that scientific method of experiment, get a result, make a decision. And look at governing. For instance, there's a major part in your chapter 15 about changes in government. It talks about the monarchy early in the chapter and the structuring of the monarchs and then how that changes. You can also just focus your essay on the American and French revolutions if you want to, how those particular revolutions reflect the values of the neoclassic period, the Enlightenment, how the Enlightenment philosophy, as it mentions here, actually allowed for these two revolutions to occur. Or you can go with the last one here if you want to, or again, you can bring in some of these together about female writers. In your textbook, Mary Wollstonecraft is prominently discussed. So you can look at that one if you wish, because there's some really important female writers during this era. They mention some in France, writing the ones who wrote during this era, and the importance that they have, the salon, if you will, where the women were hosting the discussions that were held in those French salons. So again, these are your topics and the overviews of those, just so I can give you some background. To find some of the information, you go here to your library resources. Hopefully all of you know that's what that's for. You can go down here to EBSCOhost, and you can type in something. I'll type in, let me close that out, we don't need any of those. We don't need any of these. I'm not sure why all this is coming up. This is from some other topics that were being looked at. Let's just go with the de Medici family, since that was the first topic. You have to log in. It's your same login that you use for the Canvas and your email. It gives me something wrong about because it goes with medicine. And so you have, again, some details here about malarial infection of the Medici family. This is a really good article. It's called The Secrets of the Medici. Again, you can access it here or scroll down here and see the full article. And again, this offers you some details. And what's good about using the library resources is a very simple matter. How do you cite it? Well, there you go. Change it to MLA, and there's your citation. I'm going to open up a Word document. There we go. Let me go back to where we were. I'm going to copy this and make a couple of changes because it never shows up the way it should. Nope, that's not what we wanted. Let me go back into Word and open a blank document. There we go. So when I paste it, the works cited should be centered. And so we have that. But the rest of this is double-spaced, and you'll see that the first line goes against the left margin. The other lines are tabbed over. If you look up here under Paragraph Settings, you'll see that it's called Hanging Indent. And that's what you want. You also want to make sure there's no extra spaces between the paragraphs. But that's how your works cited page should look. And then if we go back to and get another one, bear with me. The Hidden History of the Medici Dynasty. Again, a nice little article that's offered. But it's primarily, this is actually reviewing a book. This little article has some comments about the book with a very brief little commentary but you may find something here, this idea about some of this detail here. So it didn't offer much in that one. I was saying that was the actual book, excuse me. And it's not, it's just the review. We want magazines, academic journals, biographies, books, and ebooks. And we apply that, and I'll get rid of the reviews. This one looks at the Magi. This is talking about a painting that was commissioned. This is about, if I remember correctly, this is the Columbia Encyclopedia article. It's not very long. It just talks about the influence and the family members. But again, this is one you can use if you want some basic details. Here's your citation. You just copy it. Oops. And get all of it. There we go. Copy it. Then on your, paste it in. There you go. Make sure you keep it in alphabetical order. This is F. That would be I. So that's alphabetical order. So this is how you can go find the articles. Let's go change subjects. Let's do Michelangelo. And you'll see that this is an ebook, and so is this one. In this particular book, I think this is the one. Let me look again. Yeah, this is, they have a section about him as a sculptor, late Renaissance sculpture, and then the overall work. And so if you look at this one, this particular chapter, it goes into the detail about his late Renaissance. And his sculpture there, and talks about some of the details of it. You can see examples here that are offered. Michelangelo, as it says here, snuffed out the rest of the late Renaissance sculpture with his style. And so then it goes on and gives you some of the examples of his work as a sculptor. And it goes into some details about some of the work overall. That's what this is, the oeuvre. Is just about his work overall and what he presented. And this is one of his works. This is another one at the Church of San Domenico. And then it talks about how he was a representation of the modern era. Okay, so that again talks about his influence beyond just his time, which was part of the question. And so it goes into some details about his life, his background. His first models he studied, this is about the early period. And some of his early works here is presented as well. And it talks about those and gives you images. This is an image of his Madonna and Child, and that compares with his Pieta, which is done much later. This image of the Pieta is done at a later time. This is another one that's done later. You'll see that this statue of Mary is credited in early 1500s. The next one is about 10 years later, 10 to 20 years later. And then this is his Pieta, a major work that is presented. You can see the detail here. It's part of that Manneristic style. The Pieta, you'll see, is in that era. So you have some details here. So this is a work that can be very useful. Primarily, I want to show you that one because it has the images of the works in it. And again, here's your citation. So if I were doing this one, I have to make a correction on this one because sometimes they don't always get it right. And I'm going to show you what they didn't do right here. That's the first name. So you cut that, put a comma, and you paste it. There you go. Please recognize that sometimes these citations do that, because again, it's Muntz Eugene is who it should be, and whoever entered this, and again, it's just entered by people, did not do it right. So that's a very easy fix at times, but that's a really good book. This one, that's one by his artwork. That's not what we want. This one by Forte, I'm not sure if this is one I'm thinking about or not. Yeah, that's the one that's not available. It doesn't show up for some reason. I'm not sure why it's not there. This is an interesting commentary about, again, Michelangelo as an influence on modern. Okay, and again, you'll notice it should be available here. This one I know you can get into. There it is. Okay, and you get to look at some of the details here about some of the particular aspects, and they talk about this era, and so this is some of the ones to look at where it talks about the details. And again, if I can get this to go down here, we'll get to it. Yeah. This is talking about the overall art market in Italy at the time when of Michelangelo. So it doesn't just talk about Michelangelo. It talks about some of the other aspects. But I want to show you this one because one of the topics actually look at the idea of the Venetian art. Well, you'll see here that this book has a chapter over art in Venice. It talks about some of the details there. So it does have some details. It also has some other details about some of the other ones. And so this is a work that you can look at for the other topics, not necessarily about Michelangelo. That's what I was thinking. I don't think that one really talks about Michelangelo. But we have some other ones here. And I'm trying to look at a couple other things here. Thought there was another. Okay, this one. If I remember correctly, this one has a little commentary. But I want to look at. Let me look at the article here. It's been a while since I've looked at this one. Bear with me for just a moment. I'm trying to remember. This is again about talking about Michelangelo burning some of his images. They done his sketches they used before he did that. And yeah, this talks about younger Michelangelo. And it talks about those works here that you can look at. And so again, you can see some of the things. This one had the images of some of his early, but when he was older, it talks about some of the other works that he did when he was older. And so you can look at some of those details. These are some of the drawings he made before he would do his work, his sculptures. And so this is some of the details here. So this is the one that I was thinking about. And then this one that particularly talks about his legacy, the importance of Michelangelo. And so yeah, this is a good article to look at for Michelangelo if you're looking at that. But some of the other details you can look at through the resources. We also have ebook collections. This is I'm going to go into this one very quickly because you may not be aware we actually have books to look at. And if I go back to Medici family, some of the same ones are going to pop up that we're looking at. You have some, well, there's one about Michelangelo, the one we're just looking at. So you have some details here with the ebook collection. And then also underneath this one, if you look at the reference library, it has some. We have a ProQuest book. This is, again, a one to look at with Medici family. There you go. This is a companion to Cosimo de' Medici. Catherine de Medici, this is a book about her. She's a very important individual. This was written by Balzac, Henri de Balzac, who was a French writer. And you'll see that it's listed as 2010. No, this was actually written in a much earlier era. So you have this entire book, and you have the details here, etc., that are offered. Catherine is a very important figure. Likewise, this one is about some of the other impact on family. This is a really good book about Isabella de Medici, and she was the daughter of Cosimo, and what happened to her. Really good. This one talks about Oliver's Guide to Florence and looks at some of those identities of Catherine de Medici. Really strong, some of these that you can look at. So the Pro book, again, this is underneath ProQuest book, ebook. So we have some other sources for you to use as well. So when you're looking at the topics, one more time, under the modules, it's supposed to have jumped in, didn't the essay is here. The video is going to go here. I have an example of a major essay. It's not over the same topic, but this is where we're going to talk about MLA formatting very quickly. MLA formatting means that you double space your essay. You have actual paragraphs, which means you tab over for every paragraph. You do not put extra spaces between the paragraphs. You have a header, which you do very simply by typing in here. I'll tell you what, let me go back here and we'll download this. I have this one where you can actually download it. So I'll download this one and we'll open it so you can see it. And I'll make this a little larger. So when you do a header, you click up here and you type in, start with a page number, and then you type in your name, and then once you have that done, below this dash line, just double click, and it's all good. Now this needs to be moved over, because for some reason it did not do that. I'm not sure why it's doing that one. Okay, there you go. Because it was doing a first line is what it was. That's the first line of the, when it shows first line, it means like the first line of your, and so you want to get that taken care of. So cancel. So there we are. So that goes, this is called the heading. Your name, my name, course, and the date. If you haven't messed with your margins on your Word document, then you're okay. This is double spaced. Again, under paragraph, you'll notice it says double down here. So everything's going to be double spaced. The title should not be in bold, by the way. Have some sort of title that reflects what your essay's about. Do not repeat the topic. Don't just put title of my report. No, actually have a title. And I know you're thinking nobody would do that. I just graded an essay, and the title was title of your report. Literally, it said title of your report for the title of the essay. No. Notice that the paragraphs are all tabbed over. There's no extra spaces. It's just double spaced. You see it goes all the way down. Each paragraph tabbed over. And then the works cited page. Again, this should not be in bold. And so it's all in the same font. And again, Times New Roman 12 is appropriate. Calibri 11 is appropriate. So you can use those. Calibri 11 is the default font for Microsoft Word. And you can use that one. But this is Times New Roman. It starts off talking about some of the details, and then it gives specific information here that was taken from the textbook. And this is the textbook. That was the previous edition. And you'll see down here on the works cited page that's attributed to Cunningham, Lawrence, et al. There are two other authors that are listed. Culture and Values, this should have been italicized, it's the title of the book, so it should look like that. Again, same thing with these other two. These are also books. They should be italicized. I'm just going to do it very quickly for you. There we go. Throughout the essay, whenever information is drawn from the source, they're credited here. Textbook here. Textbook here. Source here. Source here. These are called parenthetical citations, where you, after the information is used, you put parentheses, the name of the author of the information, close your parentheses, and then the period goes here. It doesn't matter if you're quoting it word for word, if you've summarized it, or if you've changed up a few words, that's what's called paraphrase. Any information drawn from the source must be cited. And so, again, this is presented in this way. When you have this lengthy quote from the source, should not have had the quotation marks around it because it's blocked, and this should have been tabbed over. And so this is why it's called a block quote. Whenever anything you're going to quote from a word for word, that is going to require more than 3 lines. And again, you'll see these are the 10 Commandments. If it's going to take more than 3 type lines, if all of this here had been from a source, and it's not quoted word for word, then that would need to have been tabbed over. If this information, I'm just going to mark it really quickly. Let's just go from here to here. If this information had actually been word for word from Cunningham, that would have had to have been blocked, which means you simply tab over once or twice. Used to be twice, MLA now saying you can do it with once, and every line is tabbed over. Notice how this is all tabbed over, showing that it's a blocked quote, word for word from the source, so you don't need the quotation marks. The period goes here. There should not be a period here. And then you put your citation. For the other ones, if you're putting material, it's only going to take 1 or 2 lines, maybe 3 at most, or if you're summarizing it, the period goes after the citation. But again, notice how the paragraphs are tabbed over. It's double-spaced. The works cited page is a separate works cited page, a separate page. It's just entitled Works Cited. There's no punctuation after Works Cited. You maintain double space. You don't put extra spaces between the entries. The entries are listed in alphabetical order. So you've got Cunningham, DeNova, Pace. So it's C, D, and P. And so you have those. You'll see the header is on each page. And everything looks the way it's supposed to. So this is an example for you to look at. Again, I have it up here for you to look at. Under the modules, I also have for you the instructions on how to submit the essay to turn it in. And again, it doesn't jump. When you go here, getting ready to submit your essay, you'll see the topic. Then below this, you'll see a gray bar saying Load Major Essay. And so when you click on this, it'll take you to the submission location. And again, if you're unsure of that, how to do that, I have a video from the University of Kentucky, a professor there who works in their language resource, their library resource center. And again, this has not jumped where it's supposed to. There we go. Maybe so. This is a video. It's 6 minutes long, and he walks you through how to submit an assignment and turn it in through Canvas. And he literally walks you through how to do it. And again, it's not quite 6 minutes long. So you have that to look at. I'm looking forward to reading your essays. Again, under the textbook, you have chapters 11 through 15 here. Details are offered for you. Again, with the textbook, as it's trying to open here, I'm about to wrap this up. You have the table of contents for it. If you just click on chapter 11, you'll see this one. And if you look at some of the details here, for instance, secular painting, tells you about some of those. It tells you about art in Italy. You got art in Florence, a sculpture. Talks about Michelangelo, music in the Medici period. You can use that if you're looking at the Medici family. Under sculpture, it'll take you to that particular part, and it discusses some of the major artwork of this era. Again, Ghiberti and the competition for the baptistry doors. Donatello, this is part of that Renaissance aspect of art, if you're comparing some of the details here. Again, under, let me collapse that one, there we go. Under the part 2, I think it's under part 2, where it looks at some Northern humanism. This is where you have the scientific revolution, and looks at some of the figures that are listed for you to look at some of those. William Gilbert, Kepler. So you have those, and then you have some other details down here about Northern Europe, understanding it. Again, this is at the end of every chapter, where it gives you a summary. So let me collapse all in here, and go to 1600, and again you'll see some of the details here about Europe in the 17th, the Baroque in Italy. So there's this part about the Baroque, and again you'll see about 17th century painting in Italy, and give you some details here about some of those figures. And then about literature in the 17th century. It makes a little comment about John Donne here, but here's about the Baroque music. You have the details about some of the other ones. I'm going to collapse all that again and go up here to part 1, where you have some of the other details. Italy in the 16th century, Rome, Venice. This is where you get to look at the Venetian art and the Roman art, the details there, so you can look at those. So again, the textbook is laid out for you in that way. Again, when you go to the modules, you'll go to the major essay. If you need the instructions on how to submit, just click there. If not, click here. And then on the gray bar, and submit your essay. Again, I'm looking forward to reading these, and so I'm looking forward to what you have, whatever topic you have chosen.